Alright, here I got a MacBook model A2337, and as you can see, this display is quite broken. It's got some beautiful colors. Let me show you how we fix it. The first step is to flip it over. Now we need to remove the 10 screws that are on the back. They do vary in size, so make sure you keep them in order. Once those screws are out, we can pop off the back. Now we can disconnect the battery. First, we'll clip up this little hinge, and then with a pry tool, we can pop the battery connector. We'll switch to a torque 4 screwdriver bit and take out the screws that are covering up the display connector. We'll gently pop that up with a spudger and fold it on back so that it's not in the way. We'll switch to a T5 and remove the 4 silver screws that are on this Wi-Fi bar. There are 2 more black ones that we will get to in a second. We'll also take out this screw. It's covering up the 2 coax cables that go into the Wi-Fi bar. We'll remove the screws and the 2 plates that cover up the connectors for the camera microphone on the display. And then we'll take out the 2 black screws that are remaining, holding down this big bar. Gently pop out this little daughter board and fold it out just to make sure it's not going to be too much in the way. And with a spudger, we'll carefully pry away this bar. It is adhered on the back side, so it does take a little bit of effort. So I'm gently making sure I'm not prying in the wrong spots, and we'll let the adhesive let go itself. Being careful not to knock anything on the motherboard. Get it to finally pop. And we'll slide the display daughter board through the little gap there. And we'll set this aside. I'm going to take the time to blow out some of the dust here. And then I'm going to take 2 of the 3 screws out of the hinges. This will make more sense in a little bit. Now we'll take the MacBook, and I'm going to carefully open the display and set it on the edge of the desk. And we'll remove the final 2 screws. Now I'm able to manipulate the screen to get those hinges out of their little spots. Set the rest of it aside, and now we can focus on the display. It's quite dusty in this area, and we're going to be removing this, so I'd rather get rid of the dust now. So I'm going to take a brush to it and flick off all of that dust. And I'm going to knock down some of the dust as well on the screen here with a little bit of alcohol and a wipe. I'm not looking to clean the display, I'm just looking to knock down all of the dust. So we don't want that potentially getting onto the backlight once we've removed the LCD panel. I use this thin piece of plastic to carefully remove the glass plastic bezel that's at the bottom of the screen. These are fairly fragile, so you have to take your time and make sure you're cutting under them without forcing them up, or they will shatter, and replacements tend to not have the MacBook Air logo. So if you want to keep that, take your time in removing this piece. I'm going to use a little bit of heat here. I'm going to set it to like 150, 180 degrees. Move the deflects out of the way. And we'll just take some time to warm it up gently. With a nice low airflow. Nothing crazy. I'm not meaning to burn the display, and I don't want to warp the backlight. Carefully work the plastic, making sure we're never putting too much pressure in one spot. And we'll work our way over to the middle. And slowly make our way over to the other side. I want to keep it as flush as possible, so that's why I'm pushing it firmly against the display. I don't want it to pop up because it could shatter this thin piece of glass.
One time I cracked this at the very end, like almost done, and it just cracked. So hopefully I don't crack this one.
If any of you are wondering what this thin piece of plastic is, it is the OCA protector from any sheet of OCA. There, we've popped it loose, and we can set that aside as well. We'll pop up the rubber gasket that goes around the perimeter. There's some double-sided adhesive that holds it down. And taking our time, we'll gently pull this out. This can stretch, so every once in a while you'll see me grabbing it in a slightly lower position so that I'm not stretching it, because I will be reusing this. Comes out quite easily, and it sure is satisfying. There are 5 screws that hold down this little bar that protects the flex cables. So we'll take those out. And then we can pop out this little plastic bar and remove the 7 screws that hold the bottom of the LCD panel to the frame. Now with the spudger, we'll disconnect the camera and the backlight flex cables. And then I'm going to gently pull on the display flexes, carefully pulling them away from the frame. There's a bit of double-sided adhesive that holds them down. Now let's move on to separating the display from the frame. Got this thin metal tool that's super flexible. It allows me to slice down the sides. It doesn't quite work as well on the top, but it will work really nicely up to the corners on the sides. Just making sure that I don't go too deep because I don't want to scratch the backlight. And the adhesive will kind of re-stick, so I'm going to carefully pry up now on the bottom corner of the display and slowly slice through the adhesive that I've already pre-sliced. And we'll recut until we get all the way to the corner, alternating between the plastic and the metal, making sure we're not scratching the metal frame at the same time. We'll go to the other side and we'll do the exact same thing. And a little pry tool there at the bottom helping me so that I can slice all the way up to the top corner. Now here's what I like to do. I'll slowly give it a little bit of tension and pry up on the screen a little bit. Take some hot air, and we're going to start warming up the top of the display. And I'm going to go nice and slow. I'm not worrying about overheating because of the temperature. I'm not going to warp the backlight because of the low airflow. And I'm going to sit here until it lets go, going back and forth, making sure I have an even distribution of heat. It may take a few minutes, but eventually you'll start to feel it give as the display starts to lift higher and higher and higher. Once the display kind of straightens out, you know you're at the point where you can just simply hinge it up and over. And one of the nice things about doing it this way is most of the time you'll leave the adhesive intact at the top of the display, which is a little bit more intricate of cutting because of the design, so it's nice to have that when it comes to installing the new LCD panel. To remove it fully, I'm just going to hinge it all the way over the back and let that adhesive pull away from the glass and stay on the frame. On the border though, on both sides, the left and the right, the adhesive is completely mangled, only leaving a little bit of it, so I'm going to take this nice little tool and carefully remove all of the adhesive that I can. It doesn't need to be perfectly clean, but I'd like to have the bulk of it gone. And we'll do the same on the other side, zipping around with this tool, rolling up the adhesive, cleaning it nicely, making sure we get the majority of the adhesive gone. Now we'll reinstall the rubber bezel, lining it up in the corner and slowly compressing it down into the little gap on the frame. You will find that you'll have to compress it, and it is nice because you can get these little wiggles out eventually by working it back and forth. They'll compress into it themselves and straighten out. As you can see here, this little arch, it will just simply disappear. And I do this all making sure that I'm not touching the backlight. Those white sheets are super susceptible to scratches, oils, alcohol, fingerprints, whatever it is, dust. You don't want any of it to get on there. We'll get the whole bezel nicely installed. And we are now more than halfway done. Now I'm going to take some double-sided adhesive and we'll replace the adhesive that we messed up on the sides. I like to lay 2 strips on the sides because of the design here and the little gaps in parts of the backlight. I can snip them to length. And we'll do the same on the other side. This also helps hold the rubber gasket in place, as part of this tape will touch the edge of it. We'll compress it with a sputter, making sure it has a nice adhesion, and add adhesive wherever needed. We'll peel off the protectors. And now it's time to install the display. On the back, I'm going to put a little bit of Scotch tape, and we'll get rid of any dust or debris that has fallen on the backlight. Peel off the protector. And now we can install it in the top by lining up the corners perfectly, making sure it's completely centered, parallel, and slowly set it in, making sure the flex cables aren't getting pinched, moving the rubber gasket out of the way, as it needs to go on top of the corners of the display. It'll fall in place once it's out of the way. Just like that. We'll do the same on the other side. And it'll fall down. We'll give it a nice compression, just a finger push. That's enough to get it going. And we'll reinstall the 7 screws that hold down the bottom of the LCD panel. The 2 on the corners are a little tricky because they're under the rubber. Peel up the little protector that covers the anti-static adhesive sticker, and we'll put back the little plastic flex cable protector bracket with its 5 screws. I applied some new double-sided adhesive to our glass bezel. And we'll gently set that in place. And push it on down. We'll reconnect the two little connectors on this daughter board. Now we can install it back into the frame using the trick where we put it on the edge of the table. It can then dangle freely while we grab our screws. We'll put back one screw on each side so that we can lift it and close it and make sure everything's aligned. Once I like that, I will go ahead and put back the remaining 4 screws, securing the hinge to the frame. We'll put back this little antenna and compress it down for that adhesive stick. And we'll put back the 4 screws that hold it down. Along with the 2 black screws that hold down the daughter board inside of the bracket. We'll connect up the display connector. Put back the brackets and cover up all of the other connectors, including the display connector. Now we'll reconnect the 2 coax cables by compressing them down. Reinstall the bracket with its single screw, holding these 2 down, and then we'll connect up the battery. Flip over the secure bar, and we will reinstall the back shell and put back the 10 screws that hold down the back. And now we just need to test it. This won't turn on its own, even if you push the power button, so you need to plug it in. And that'll be enough to prompt it to boot. And you should get an Apple logo. Got our little loading bar. We'll set this down on the desk. And I'm going to peel off this protector so we can get a good look at this new display. And would you look at that? Everything looks like it's working properly. And this is all fixed.